Hello, and welcome back to the Unforgettable podcast. If you are new here, I'm about to tell you a little something about myself. If you've been here for a while, you're going to be like, yeah, Blakely, we already know. But I am very type A. I love to plan. I love to organize. I love to think ahead. And so obviously on December 1st, I'm already thinking about my 2026 goals. I'm not a huge New Year's resolution person simply because I try to update my goals all throughout the year, but I do like to go into the new year with a fresh mindset, fresh ways of thinking, fresh things that I have on my horizon, etc. So as I look through my 2026 goals, they are certainly lofty. Obviously, would life be any fun if we weren't setting big goals? I think not. But one thing that I have learned in 2025 has been a very interesting year. It has probably been the single biggest year of growth that I ever have had. And it came in ways that I didn't expect, but now that I am approaching the end of the year, I'm looking back and I'm realizing how impactful this year has been. And I'm going to kind of unpack all of that in some episodes coming up. But for this episode, I really wanted to break down what I have learned this year about actually achieving big goals. And I think it is so easy for us to set big goals and look at these big goals and go, okay, the big flashy thing is going to be what makes the difference, the big moment, the big impact. But what I've learned is that not only do the little tiny moments make the biggest difference, but they're also actually the hardest to sustain because they're often little moments that are easy for us to overlook. They are easy for us to not really give a lot of credit to, but those little tiny moments are the big things that make a huge difference. So for the month of December, I personally am focusing on improving the little tiny things that are going to add up to the really big things in 2026. And I'm all about improving my baseline. I'm doing a series over on Instagram. You can go follow me at blakely.ramsey. I'm doing a series about raising my baseline. So I talked about this a little bit. It's probably been a couple months, but talked about, your floor and your ceiling and your, a couple years ago, they would have said that your ceiling is the proof of what your capacity could possibly be. How high can you go? But as research is coming out, people are finding that your floor or your baseline is actually the cap on your potential. So it is the absolute bare minimum that you are willing to put up with, your bare minimum standards. Those are actually the things that make the biggest impact on your goals. And so that's why I'm really focusing on that, especially the last month of this year. I feel like a lot of people let their foot off the gas pedal, and then in January, they try to get some momentum, and it's really hard. And I would rather coast into the new year and be revved up and ready to go. So let's go over some of these little tiny moments today where you might accidentally be letting yourself drop below your baseline. All of these I have dealt with / am dealing with. So this is definitely not preaching from a high throne. This is hey, I'm experiencing this and we're in this together. And when I tell you that some of these things are going to seem so insignificant, but they make such a big impact, I am not playing around. I think a lot of these, especially for women, come up when we step outside of our comfort zone. It can be so easy to step outside of your own comfort zone and not even realize it. And, you see other people performing the same little small activities and you're like, that should be so easy for me. Why is it so difficult? And you can feel a lot of guilt. I know particularly with some of these, I have definitely experienced that where I'm like, this should not be that hard. I'm successful, I have a college degree, all these accolades that you claim, but really it's all about relativity. So it depends on how much you're stepping outside of your own personal comfort zone. So for me, a lot of these were really pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. And I think that's why I struggled with them so much. And I've got a lot of female friends that have struggled with these as well, especially really high achievers. So we're going to go over them today. I've got 5. Okay, number one, and this is going to trigger some people. If you had said this to me a couple years ago, I would have been majorly triggered, so stick with me here. But number one leak that will keep you below your baseline is letting exhaustion become your personality. Okay, I hear you. The world is like moving so quickly with, technology, and there's all these options, and everything's moving so fast, and politics and social media, and everything is loud. It can be really easy to fall into the trap of my personality is I'm so busy. My personality is I'm constantly overwhelmed. My personality is I'm exhausted. Like, it can be easy to tell yourself that there's no other way to live except for that. And I know because I was that person. Anytime somebody came up to me and was like, hey, how are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm so busy. Oh, I'm just so exhausted. Oh, just running on fumes, barely making it. That was literally the language that I used. And don't get me wrong, I definitely still have days where I experience that, where I look around or like I look at my list and I'm like, how am I going to get all of this done? But if you feel like that all of the time, I want you to question your language a little bit. I want you to push back a little bit on that language, because one thing that I found is I would self-fulfill my prophecies. So I would sit there and tell people, oh, I'm so busy. Oh, I'm so exhausted. Oh, I'm so overwhelmed. Or I would even, tell myself that in the morning. I would wake up and I'd be like, today's going to be so exhausting. Today's going to be so busy. I'm going to be so overwhelmed today. And then you go look for ways to prove yourself right. I think it's funny, I don't know, is maybe not the word for it, but I do think it's interesting how we as human beings constantly fight to prove ourselves right, even if it is something that inherently is negative for us. So when we say, I'm so busy, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so exhausted, if we have a free moment in our day, our mind is going to go panic. We can't have this because we are busy, overwhelmed, and exhausted. And so you go look for problems. I am the queen of that. I was in denial that I was in the queen of that, but I definitely did. I would try to make things so much harder than they needed to be, just to kind of prove that I was busy and I was overwhelmed. And I kind of owned that personality like a badge of honor. And I have definitely stepped back from that personality. And what I'm finding is I'm getting more done without carrying around the title of the busiest person that everyone knows. This has been, me saying no to a lot of things. I have stepped back from a lot of the boards that I was sitting on, a lot of the friend groups that I was with, a lot of the activities that I was participating in. I've just completely stepped away from it. And I'm really focusing on, obviously, family and friends first, and then the core things that need to get done in order for me to actually accomplish my goals. And when I focus on those things and wellness and taking care of myself and reading, I find that I actually have so much free time. I'm not in all this drama and doom scrolling and overthinking, and it's just so easy to fall into the trap of ensuring that you stay busy and overwhelmed when you're constantly telling yourself that you're busy and overwhelmed. So just think about that. Think about, question if you are letting exhaustion become your personality, because it is so easy to fall into that. Like I said, I was a queen of it. I would make my list so long. I would make my list impossible to actually get done. And then, of course, they would spill over into the next day. So I was able to convince myself, like, you are so overwhelmed. You are so behind. You are, like, so busy. All you need is a day off. And if I would have just, like, cut my list back a little bit and actually taken a day off, I could have easily solved that whole issue. And I'm telling you right now, I get more done. And the quality of my work is better. The quality of my relationships is better. The quality of my mental health is better now that I am not letting exhaustion become my core personality. So that is baseline leak number one. Baseline leak number two. Ladies, I am talking to you when I say this. Men do not deal with this problem. I will sit here on a hill and say that men do not deal with this problem. And I might be wrong, but I don't feel like I am. Baseline leak number two is downplaying your true desires. So saying things like, oh, I don't really want that, when you actually do. Over-explaining why you want something. Saying things like, oh, well, I'm not in it for the money. Or, oh, I'm just doing it to help others. Like, I hear women say that all the time. I have said it before. I have said the words, I'm not in this for the money. Yes, I am. I'm totally in this for the money. Like, and that's okay. There is such and I don't know if it is a Southern thing, but I hear women that I'm around in my everyday life, so in South Arkansas, I hear them downplay their real desires, and it does make me a little sad. And I've done this before too, so there's definitely no judgment. But I do think that there is a little bit of almost a way of protecting yourself when you downplay your real desires. Other people aren't going to judge you as much. People are going to judge you, period. But it can feel like other people aren't going to judge you as much if you go, oh, well, I don't really want it. Well, I'm not in it for the money. So you try to avoid judgment, but then also you try to avoid disappointment. So if you tell yourself like, oh, I don't really care if I accomplish that goal or not, I don't really care if that happens for me, you might be convincing yourself that you are protecting yourself and protecting your ego, and I don't want to get my hopes up. But shrinking can really be so harmful for women, especially if it's something that you really truly want. I think personally that God gave us all incredible gifts that we need to take out of the box and unleash out into the world. And I think when we convince ourselves that staying small and not going for it is the way to go, it can be really damaging. It can lead you to being very risk averse. And if there's anything I've learned in 2025, the best things in life, the biggest accomplishments, the greatest feeling of joy is usually on the other side of a really big risk. So, baseline link number 2, downplaying your real desires. Okay, number 3. This one kind of goes along with number 2, but over-explaining your choices. This can look like over-justifying your boundaries. This can look like explaining decisions to feel approval. I used to do this all of the time, especially when I first started implementing boundaries in my life. I felt the need to explain why I had said boundary, and I would also feel the need to explain certain goals or why I wanted certain things. And for me, what I found that was really damaging with this is I would be looking for external validation from some random person or my poor husband who might not have been paying attention to me. So in my mind, like, our conversation is huge. It is so powerful and important because I'm sitting here looking for external validation from someone else and they have no clue. So the other person might say something without even really thinking about it. They don't realize the seriousness of the conversation. And so you are looking for this external validation and the other person doesn't match it. And for me personally, I would internalize it. So my poor husband, for example, if I was, looking for external validation from him and he just kind of brushed under the rug, I would take that as this is your sign not to go for it. He's sitting there telling you he doesn't think that's a good idea. This random person on that you're on a committee with that you kind of told a big goal to, they're sitting there telling you that they don't think it's a good idea, so you shouldn't do it. And I think so often we put so much pressure on the other person, but why are we putting pressure on other people when we need to go after our own internal validation? So that's something to be super careful about, is over explaining your choices and then expecting too much from the other person. I was expecting a lot from other people when really what I needed to work on was my own internal voice and accepting things on my own. So that was a big one for me in 2025. Okay, baseline link number 4. Staying in almost aligned relationships. Now, I think this is another one that might be a Southern specific thing. I don't know. I've never lived anywhere but the South, but I do think that it's so easy. We grow up together. We have, the same friends our whole life. And a lot of these friends are just, I hate to say convenience friends, but they're close. We sat beside them in English. We played basketball with them. We played softball with them. We were on the same cheer squad. And so, it made sense as children, but now as adults, our lives are often so different, but we are still spending time with the same people. And not that that is inherently a bad thing, but sometimes you need to be pushed to a different level and in a different way. And the people that have known you since you were 5, 6 years old, they can't always do that. It's not that there's anything wrong with them, that they are less than, nothing like that. But sometimes you need new relationships, and you need relationships that are going to push you. Now, I think it's great if you have friends that you've been friends with forever and they can provide that for you. But I think often too, once again, we expect too much from the people around us. And sometimes you have to go seeking those relationships. You have to go seeking those relationships that bring you energy, that push you, that excite you, that, talk about big goals, talk about big money, different things like that. I think it's unfair to expect the people in your life to suddenly change and want to have different conversations with you just because you want something different for your own life. So once again, that's something that I've really had to come to terms with this year. I've got different friendships for different things in different seasons and different conversations. And I have had to learn who I can go to for what. And that might sound ugly, but I think it's just reality. Okay, last one. And this is a big one, okay? Baseline link number 5 is living in low-grade chaos. Now, you probably know, because I've probably mentioned it before. I love organization. I love when things are labeled. I love when things are in their place. I just love order, but I am naturally very messy. I take stuff out and I forget to put it back up. I leave a trail of trash basically wherever I go. Messy spaces lead to reactive days. Reactive days lead to getting off track. Getting off track leads to, it's just like such a cycle. And it cannot seem like a big deal to have a dirty car. It cannot seem like a big deal to have, 100 unread text messages. Like all of that can seem like something that's so little and so small, but those things add up to such a high level of reactivity that you are constantly going back to feeling like overwhelmed and exhausted is your personality. Those little things really, really add up. I have to be so careful with myself to stay on a routine with dishes, my car, my closet, my drawers, my, storage on my phone, all these different things. I have to be so careful about, because if I drop below that baseline and I start to let all these little things creep up, I won't even really notice them, and I will start to make extremely reactive decisions that don't actually help me get any closer to my big goals. And those are the things that are easy. The things that are easy to do are just as easy not to do. And those are definitely things that I slip on. So I have to be extra critically careful about that. Now, as women, it can be so easy to be really hard on ourselves when we are looking at the big things, the giant things, the big goals. But if you are working through any of these little baseline leaks, it can almost feel like I should already know how to do this. I should be able to do this already. I'm successful. I'm a mom. I'm, a wife. I'm an adult. I'm 40. There can be this little nagging voice in your brain that says it should be easy to keep my car clean. It should be easy to stay in aligned relationships, to not over-explain my choices, to say my real desires out loud, to not let exhaustion become my personality. It can be so easy to downplay all that stuff and be like, oh, I should already be able to do that because I'm a successful person. But I want you to know I have been working on all this very actively for 2 years, and I feel like I'm just now seeing some progress. I feel like I'm just now kind of getting over the hump and putting strong boundaries in place and not over explaining myself. So give yourself grace on the big goals, but also give yourself grace on these little baseline leaks, because these are the everyday moments that end up making a huge impact on your life. And a lot of these are some of the hardest things that you will ever do, some of the hardest goals you'll ever set, some of the hardest habits you'll ever change. So give yourself grace on that, because at least from my experience, these little everyday moments, they matter the most, but they are also the hardest to accomplish because they push us outside of our everyday comfort zone, and we just naturally want to stay in our comfort zone. Of course, it's comfortable there. We would rather, what is a quote? You'd rather be in a comfortable hell than an uncomfortable heaven. I replay that all the time. And it always, I'm like, oh, that is so true. Okay, that's all I've got for you today. I hope that you got some value out of this episode. If you did, please leave me a review. Make sure you follow and subscribe. If you've got a friend that this episode made you think of, send this episode to them, and I will see you in the next one.